What is one of the most important things employees want to know from the boss? Well, it may not necessarily be top of mind, but a high-ranking answer in surveys is that employees want to know if they're doing a good job and what it would take to improve. Managing employee performance may not always be specifically a human resources department responsibility, but the job of employee management ultimately does find itself under the human resources umbrella. In this unit, we'll take a look at performance management activities, the purpose of performance management systems, measuring their effectiveness, comparing measuring performance, advantages and disadvantages, rating errors, effective feedback, improving unsatisfactory performance, and a listing of legal and ethical issues. The entire process falls under human resources. When considering the effectiveness of performance activities, we need to make sure that we check the match between an employee's activities and the organization's goals. A management method needs to be relevant, and a performance appraisal needs to provide feedback to the employee to identify problems and ways to solve them. Performance management systems need to be strategic with clear objectives that link employee behavior with the organization's goals. Performance management is the basis for determining an employee's salary and possible benefits, along with recognition and the ultimate decision on whether an employee will be kept or terminated. In addition, there's development to increase and improve an employee's job knowledge and skills to do the job and advance within the organization. Any measuring standard must be valid and actually measure relevant aspects of how well the employee is performing, and that measuring standard does not measure irrelevant aspects. It must be reliable and consistent among various raters and be acceptable to those who use the measurement and to the employees who receive feedback. Expectations must also be clear with specifics and explanations of how to meet them. Now, organizations can make use of a number of ways to compare measuring performance. There are ranking systems, simple ranking, forced distribution, and paired comparisons. Simple ranking is just that, simple. Employees are rated and placed from best to worst. Through forced distribution, the manager will rank a percentage of employees as exceptional, another percentage as exceeding standards, another for meeting standards, followed by categories of needing improvement and not acceptable. Finally, an employer might do what's called paired comparisons, where each employee is rated against each other, with 1 point being awarded to the better employee. The best performing employee is the one who receives the most points, and the advantage is that an order is established from which to base cases for raises, promotions, retention, and termination. Rating can also help counter any biases on the part of the rater. Now, the problem is that rating systems can be open to interpretations and may not effectively weigh an individual employee's strengths. Comparing measurement performance is valid when attributes are specifically defined. Rating attitudes requires a good deal of information and can be especially effective when behaviors are linked to goals. Of course, we need to do more than rate the employees. We also need to rate the results of the ratings. Do the ratings help meet productivity and achievement objectives? Are they more objective than other types of ratings? Are there circumstances out of the employee's control that affect performance? Is there a determination of what it will take to improve? Rating the quality of the ratings will result in some practical benefits. A weakness of rating systems, though, is that they're less useful for administrative or developmental decisions. There are a number of forms of performance appraisal. There's the employee self-appraisal, as well as appraisals from supervisors, peers, and customers. Now, all can provide valuable information, and depending on the goal of the appraisal, each one can carry different weights. The employee self-appraisal can reveal how the employee views his or her own contributions and the approach toward the job. Employees, however, can be especially hard on themselves or be the type to embellish their work and contributions. The immediate supervisor may be the one who has the best look at the results of the employee's work. Peers, though, may have a better view of how well the employee works on a day-to-day basis and may even know a number of positive things about the employee's contributions that managers don't necessarily see. Customers can also provide valuable information about how well they feel that they've been served. Then there's the 360-degree performance appraisal. Now, this approach combines information, the manager, peers, subordinates, self-appraisals, and customers. The manager offers accurate information for what he or she observes, but may actually have little contact with the employee. Peers know the qualities not seen by the manager, but friends or rivalries may bias any information, and friends may be uncomfortable rating a fellow worker. When it comes to rating a manager, subordinates may have the best information about how the manager treats employees. The downside, though, is that employees may be reluctant to provide any significant information without being given anonymity first. The self-appraisal may be biased. Some of the information does come from the one with the most knowledge. The self-appraisal, however, does establish a basis for discussion and feedback sessions, and it may offer some useful comparisons and areas of disagreements between the appraisal and other sources. Finally, in the 360-degree performance appraisal, customers can be an excellent source of information. It's possible, though, that getting information this way can be expensive. Ratings can also be error-prone. Raters can lack a practical means of knowing irrelevant circumstances and outcomes. They may tend to rate what they see, and they do tend to rate people as the way raters see themselves. Sometimes raters use only part of a rating scale. Now, the problems are leniency of rating employees too high, and there can be a strictness error of rating employees too low. Then there's the central tendency to rate employees near the middle. Another error may be the halo effect, where the employee scores high based on a single area of strength. And then there's also the horns error, which is an overall low rating based on a specific weakness the employee has. Effective performance feedback is dependent on regular and scheduled sessions. A neutral location is best, with an emphasis on discussion and employee self-appraisal. The next step is to strive for a problem-solving approach. Allow employees to voice their opinions and discuss performance goals. It's also helpful to look for opportunities to praise and limit criticism. It's also effective to focus on behavior and results and not personalities. The next step is to find ways to improve unsatisfactory performance. Now, there can be several reasons behind substandard work. The employee may be motivated but lacks ability. Often coaching and detailed feedback can help. Then there's the worker with ability, but who lacks motivation. Here it's important to find if an outside problem is a cause. In this case, referring the employee for help can be useful. Sometimes the employee can feel unappreciated or unrewarded. In this case, it may be a matter of providing more praise, more pay, or perhaps some other rewards. Then there's the employee who lacks both ability and motivation. And now it's time to consider whether that employee is a good fit. Specific feedback may make an impression. Sometimes withholding rewards can be effective. Sometimes a demotion is necessary to get the problem employee out of a certain position, and if the issue is serious enough and lacks a solution, termination is the final option. Human resources also needs to be mindful of legal and ethical issues. A big problem is lawsuits from discrimination or an unjust dismissal. There are performance management systems to ensure that employees are treated equally without regard to race, gender, or protected status. These also depend on valid performance measures. Legally defensible systems are based on behaviors and results, and multiple raters not based on traits, and will likely involve coaching and training. There's electronic monitoring, which often provides detailed and accurate information. Employees, however, may regard electronic monitoring as demoralizing, degrading, or even stressful. Now, to deal with this issue, it's important to explain the purpose of performance monitoring as a means of improving overall performance within the organization. With this, though, does come the need to keep performance data private. And now that we've covered the basics of employee management, we'll next move on to developing employees for future success.